I didn't walk into the shelter planning to change my life. I walked in because silence had started to feel too loud. My apartment echoed in ways that weren't architectural, but emotional. Empty bowls, unused leashes, the hum of a refrigerator that seemed to notice my loneliness more than I did. I told myself I wanted a dog. What I really wanted was proof that I could still build something that stayed. If stories about unexpected love, slow-burning connection, and the quiet moments that change everything are your kind of thing, subscribe to the channel. And please, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I always wonder where these stories land, and sometimes they land exactly where they're needed. My name is Sara Whitman. I'm 32 years old, a freelance UX designer who works too much, sleeps too little, and has perfected the art of looking emotionally functional from the outside. I live in a small, carefully organized apartment in Seattle, the kind with neutral tones and plants I keep alive out of discipline, not instinct. People describe me as calm, reliable, maybe a little distant. They're not wrong. I learned early that control feels safer than hope. The shelter smelled like disinfectant and wet fur, a strange mix of order and need. Volunteers moved with practiced gentleness, their voices soft as if the dogs could understand tone even when they didn't understand words. I told the woman at the desk I was just looking, which was a lie. I had already decided I was leaving with someone. I just didn't know who yet. That's when I saw him. Medium-sized, scruffy, brown with a white patch on his chest that looked like someone had spilled paint there by accident. One ear stood up. The other flopped permanently to the side, like it had given up trying. He wasn't barking. He wasn't begging. He was watching, eyes alert, head tilted, assessing me the way I had assessed people my entire life. I knelt without thinking. "Hey," I whispered, ridiculous as it was. His tail thumped once, then again. A volunteer smiled. "That's Milo," she said. "Sweet boy, came in last week." Milo pressed his nose to the bars, sniffed my fingers, and sighed like we had an understanding already. That was it. Decision made. The paperwork was easy. Too easy in hindsight. I answered questions about my work schedule, my apartment, my experience with pets. I paid the adoption fee. I signed my name at the bottom of a form that said I was ready. When they handed me the leash, it felt ceremonial, like crossing a line I hadn't realized I was afraid to step over. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that a similar conversation had happened earlier that day. Another volunteer, another clipboard, another signature, another woman kneeling in front of the same dog, thinking the same thing I had. This one. I didn't meet Lily that day. I took Milo home, set up his bed near my couch, watched him explore every corner like he was mapping his future. That night, he slept curled against my legs, warm and trusting. And for the first time in a long while, I slept through the night without waking up braced for disappointment. The next morning, I posted a photo. Milo sitting on my kitchen floor, head cocked, tongue out, the caption simple. Meet Milo. I didn't expect anything from it, certainly not the comment that appeared less than 10 minutes later. Wait, that's my dog. At first I laughed, internet joke, wrong person. I replied politely. I think there's been a mistake. Then the reply came back. A screenshot, adoption paperwork. My stomach dropped in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with recognition. This wasn't a troll. This was real. Her name was Lily Carter. 34, elementary school art teacher, single mom. She had adopted Milo, no, she called him Cooper, earlier that same day. She had a daughter, Anna, 6 years old. Lily's message wasn't angry. It was careful. I think the shelter made a mistake, she wrote. Can we talk? I stared at Milo, Cooper, sleeping at my feet, his chest rising and falling like he belonged there. Because he did. Because now, impossibly, he belonged to two lives. And somewhere in the city, a woman I had never met was probably staring at an identical photo, feeling the same mix of panic and attachment. I had no idea that 30 days were about to redraw every boundary I thought I had. I only knew that when I typed back, "Yes, let's talk." Something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to matter. The shelter called me before I could talk myself out of answering Lily. The number flashed on my screen while Milo, snored softly on my rug, belly up like he'd never known uncertainty a day in his life. I stepped into my kitchen, lowered my voice out of habit, and listened as a manager apologized in the careful tone people use when they know the problem can't be undone with words. "We had a system glitch," she said. "A duplicate entry. 2 volunteers processed the same dog under 2 different profiles. We're very sorry." I didn't yell. I don't yell. My anger lives quieter than that, tucked behind my ribs like a sealed envelope. "So what happens now?" I asked, and I heard the edge in my own voice. The manager exhaled. "Legally, we need the dog returned so we can correct the adoption record. But we understand both adopters are attached. We can offer a temporary foster arrangement, shared custody, for 30 days, while we review both applications and determine the best permanent placement." She said it like it was reasonable, like hearts could be split on a calendar. I agreed to meet Lily at the shelter that afternoon. The word meet sat in my head like something heavier than logistics. I had already seen her in the way people see strangers now. Profile picture, a few posts, the brief summary of her life that social media gives like a trailer. She had a warm smile, paint smudges on her cheek in one photo, and a small girl with dark curls pressed into her side like a question mark made of limbs. Anna. 6 years old. Lily's message had been polite, even kind. That made it worse. Kindness left less room for me to hide behind irritation. In the parking lot, Milo trotted beside me like he owned the world. Inside the lobby, he immediately became a celebrity, wagging at the volunteers, sniffing the donation bin, charming everyone with the innocent confidence of an animal who doesn't understand bureaucracy. I saw Lily before she saw me. She was standing near the front desk with Anna, her hand resting on her daughter's shoulder like an anchor. Lily wore jeans and a soft green sweater, hair pulled into a messy knot that looked accidental but probably wasn't. Anna clutched a small stuffed dog, squeezing it like it might disappear. When Lily turned, our eyes met, and the air shifted. Not in a lightning bolt way. In a now this is real way. She looked tired but composed, the kind of tired that comes from carrying both your own life and someone else's. Her gaze flicked down to Milo, and her face softened so fast it almost hurt to watch. Anna gasped. "Cooper!" she cried, and dropped to her knees before anyone could stop her. Milo surged forward, tail whipping, and Anna wrapped her arms around his neck like she'd been holding her breath all day. I didn't know what to do with the sudden, sharp jealousy that pierced me, not of Lily, but of the ease between Anna and the dog. Milo, Cooper, wriggled in the hug, licking Anna's cheek until she squealed. Lily laughed quietly, hand covering her mouth like she was trying to keep the sound from breaking her. Then she looked up at me with something complicated in her eyes. "Hi," she said. "I'm Lily." Her voice was warm, but cautious, like she was stepping onto ice and pretending she wasn't. "Sara," I replied. I wanted to add something clever, something that would make this less painful, but my brain had gone blank. Lily stood and brushed Anna's hair back, her fingers gentle and practiced. "I'm so sorry," she said, and I could tell she meant it, which was unfair, because it made me want to be reasonable. "Anna and we didn't know. We signed everything. They told us he was ours." She swallowed. "And then I saw your post." "I didn't know either," I said, and my voice softened despite myself. They handed me the leash like it was settled. Milo flopped onto his side between us, rolling in surrender to the universe. Anna giggled and patted his belly. Lily's gaze flicked to my hands, empty now, and then back to my face. "This is insane," she murmured. "He's been with us in my head all day, like we lost him." Her honesty landed hard. The manager brought us into a small office with a box of tissues on the table, like we were about to attend therapy instead of solve a clerical error. She explained the 30-day shared custody plan. Alternating days, with flexibility for work schedules, weekly check-ins, and a final decision meeting at the end of the month. Lily listened, jaw tight. I listened, spine straight. We both nodded like adults. Then Anna tugged Lily's sleeve and whispered loudly, "But he's our dog." Lily's throat bobbed. She crouched to Anna's level. "Honey," she said softly, "we're going to share him for a little while, okay? We're going to be kind." Anna's eyes filled, and something in me shifted again. I'm not a mother. I'm not even particularly good with kids. But I recognized that look, fear wrapped in hope. Lily glanced at me as if bracing for resistance. I surprised both of us by saying, "We can make it fun." The words came out before I could overthink them. Lily blinked. "Fun?" she repeated, skeptical. I nodded, already regretting it and also meaning it. "We can make a calendar, maybe pictures, so Anna knows exactly when she'll see him." Anna looked up, curious despite herself. "Like a sticker chart?" she asked. Lily's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "She loves sticker charts," Lily admitted. The manager looked relieved, like we'd just prevented a small war. Lily stood, arms crossing loosely. "Okay," she said. "A sticker chart, that's actually a good idea." She looked at me again, and this time her eyes stayed a second longer. "Thank you." We walked out together into the lobby, the three of us plus one dog who didn't understand he'd become a shared custody agreement. In the parking lot, Lily hesitated beside her car. "So," she said, exhaling, "first exchange is tomorrow?" I nodded. "Tomorrow afternoon. I'll bring him to the park near your place, and the sticker chart." Lily laughed softly, and it wasn't bitter. It was surprised. "You're really doing that," she said, and something warm slid through my chest. Anna waved at me like we were already friends. Milo leaned against Lily's leg, then trotted back to mine, as if testing how far the bond stretched. As they drove away, Milo sat in the passenger seat of my car and stared out the window, calm as ever. But my hands shook on the steering wheel. Not because I was angry, because for the first time in years, my life had collided with someone else's in a way I couldn't control. And the worst part, maybe the best, was that when Lily had said my name, it didn't feel like a stranger speaking. It felt like the beginning of something I hadn't allowed myself to want. The first official exchange happened at Green Lake Park, under a sky that couldn't decide whether it wanted to rain or not. Seattle in early spring, gray, undecided, honest. I arrived 10 minutes early because I always do. Milo, who now responded equally to Milo and Cooper, as if mocking our human need for certainty, sat beside me on a bench, leash loose in my hand. I told myself I was just being punctual. The truth was, I was nervous in a way that had nothing to do with custody schedules. Lily arrived with Anna skipping ahead of her, curls bouncing, a bright yellow raincoat swinging open. When Anna spotted us, she ran straight for Milo, dropping to her knees like yesterday had never happened. Lily walked slower, her gaze lifting from the ground to meet mine. There was something softer in it today, less bracing. "Hi," she said, slightly out of breath. "We brought the stickers." She held up a sheet of glitter stars like it was proof of cooperation. "I brought the calendar," I replied, pulling the laminated chart from my tote bag. It had color-coded squares, blue for my days, green for hers, and a blank space at the top for whatever name we decided on. Lily studied it with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You really committed to this," she murmured. There was a hint of admiration in her voice. It made my stomach flip in a way I didn't expect. Anna declared that today's sticker would be a rainbow because rainbows mean sharing. Lily crouched beside her, laughing quietly, and our shoulders brushed for the first time. It was accidental. Or at least I think it was. The contact lasted barely a second, fabric against fabric, but I felt it like static electricity. Lily glanced at me, quick and unreadable. I forced myself not to pull away too fast. We decided to walk together for a bit before the official handoff. It felt less clinical that way. Milo trotted between us, occasionally veering toward whichever one of us had the treats. Anna skipped ahead, narrating imaginary adventures for him. Lily's presence beside me was warm, steady, close enough that I could catch the faint scent of something citrusy when the wind shifted. "So," she said after a few minutes, eyes forward, "what do you do when you're not designing sticker charts?" Her tone was teasing but curious. I told her about UX design, about freelancing, about working from home, and sometimes forgetting to speak out loud for entire days. She listened like it mattered. Actually listened. When she talked about teaching art to third graders, about paint spills and glitter disasters and kids who thought clouds were purple, I found myself smiling in a way I hadn't in a long time. At one point, Anna ran back toward us and collided into Lily's side, wrapping her arms around her waist. Lily instinctively hugged her back, chin resting briefly on Anna's curls. I looked away, suddenly aware of something deeper than attraction rising in my chest. It wasn't just Lily's smile or her laugh. It was the way she held her daughter like she was both anchor and safe harbor. When it was time for the exchange, Anna's face fell slightly, but she held it together bravely. "Tomorrow is Blue Day," she said, pointing at the chart. "That means Sara's turn." She said my name carefully, testing it. Lily knelt beside her and kissed her temple. Then she stood and turned to me, reaching for the leash. Our fingers brushed again. This time neither of us pulled away immediately. "Text me when you get home," she said, almost casually. "Of course," I answered, and my voice came out softer than I intended. The next few days settled into an unexpected rhythm. On my days, Milo curled against my side while I worked, occasionally nudging my hand off the keyboard. On Lily's days, she sent photos. Anna reading to him, Milo asleep with his head on Lily's lap, the three of them in the kitchen covered in flour after an attempt at homemade dog treats. I sent photos back. Milo at the dog park, Milo attempting to climb onto my bed uninvited, Milo staring solemnly at the rain. Somewhere between the second and third exchange, the messages shifted from strictly dog-related logistics to small fragments of life. "Long day," she texted once, followed by a photo of a half-finished canvas in her living room. "Wine helps." I stared at the image longer than necessary before replying, "UX deadlines don't pair well with wine. I'm jealous." A minute later, my phone buzzed again. "Come over next time. We'll test that theory." I read that line 3 times before my brain caught up with my heartbeat. The first time I stepped inside Lily's house, I noticed the color immediately. It wasn't curated like my apartment. It was lived in. Warm. There were drawings taped to the fridge, a faint smell of garlic, and something sweet lingering in the air. Anna greeted me like a regular guest, dragging Milo toward the backyard before I could fully exhale. Lily stood a little closer than necessary as she closed the door behind us. "You can relax," she said gently, reading my tension too easily. "We're not enemies." "I know," I replied, though part of me had built walls just in case. We made dinner together because Anna insisted. Lily chopped vegetables with confident hands while I stood beside her, awkward at first. then less so. At one point, she reached across me for the salt, and her hip brushed mine. Neither of us commented on it. The silence stretched. Not uncomfortable, just charged. After Anna went to bed, we sat on opposite ends of the couch. Milo sprawled between us like a furry mediator. The conversation drifted from teaching horror stories to childhood pets to relationships we didn't name directly. Lily's voice softened when she mentioned being divorced. It wasn't dramatic, she said. Just misaligned. She looked at me carefully. You? I don't do misaligned, I admitted. I avoid before it gets that far. She held my gaze a beat longer than necessary. That sounds lonely. It was. I just hadn't wanted to say it out loud. When I stood to leave, Lily walked me to the door. Milo followed, confused. We stopped in the small entryway, closer than we'd been all evening. The porch light cast a warm glow over her face. She hesitated, then stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me in a brief, careful hug. It was friendly. It was appropriate. It lasted half a second longer than it needed to. I felt it all the way down to my bones. When she pulled back, our faces were closer than before. Not touching. Not quite. Good night, Sara, she said quietly. Good night, Lily. I walked to my car with my pulse racing, fully aware that 30 days suddenly felt both too short and dangerously long. By the end of the first week, the schedule felt less like a legal arrangement and more like a shared orbit. Lily and I texted every day, even on days when Milo was technically mine. It started with updates about him, but it didn't stay there. She sent voice notes sometimes, quick bursts of laughter in the background while Anna argued with the dog about whether he preferred carrots or peanut butter. I found myself replaying those voice notes late at night, just to hear the way she said my name. On the 8th day, it rained so hard the park flooded. Instead of meeting halfway for the exchange, Lily invited me over again. Stay for dinner, she added. Anna insists. I told myself I was going for convenience. The truth was, I'd been looking for an excuse. Anna greeted me like I was already part of something. She handed me a drawing before I'd even taken off my jacket. It was 3 stick figures and a dog. One figure had curly hair. One had straight hair. The third had short hair and glasses. That's you, she said, pointing. You have calm energy. I laughed, startled. Calm energy? Lily raised an eyebrow at me. See, even she can tell. Dinner was chaotic in a comforting way. Anna talked nonstop about school, while Lily and I bumped shoulders at the stove, arguing playfully over how much garlic was too much. At one point, Lily reached past me to grab a spoon and didn't move away right away. Her arm brushed my side. Her breath skimmed my neck. My body reacted before my brain did. Heat, awareness, something deeper than casual. After Anna went to bed, the house quieted into something softer. Milo curled up near the couch, content. Lily poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. To surviving shared custody, she said, clinking her glass lightly against mine. To sticker charts, I added. We sat closer this time, knees almost touching. Conversation drifted easily, about Seattle, about fear of starting over, about the strange way life reroutes you when you think you've already chosen the map. Lily spoke about the years after her divorce, how she had built her world around Anna and safety. I don't make impulsive decisions, she admitted, except for maybe adopting a dog. I studied her profile in the warm lamplight. Maybe it wasn't impulsive, I said quietly. Maybe it was brave. She turned toward me slowly. The look in her eyes wasn't playful anymore. It was searching. You think I'm brave? She asked, softer than before. I think you let yourself want something, I replied. That's harder than it looks. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged. My heart was beating too fast, but I didn't move away. Lily's hand shifted on the couch cushion, her fingers brushing mine lightly. It could have been accidental. It didn't feel that way. "Sara," she said, barely above a whisper. The way she said my name undid me. I leaned in first, or maybe we both did. It wasn't a dramatic collision. It was careful, tentative, like stepping into water to test the temperature. Our lips met softly at first, barely there. I felt the warmth of her mouth, the slight intake of her breath. For a second I froze. Not because I didn't want it, but because I hadn't allowed myself to want something like this in so long. Then she kissed me again. A little deeper. Her hand slid to my waist, hesitant but certain. My fingers curled into the fabric of her sweater, grounding myself in the reality of her body close to mine. The world narrowed to the space between us. When we finally pulled back, it wasn't because we wanted to. It was because we had to breathe. Lily rested her forehead against mine, eyes closed. "This complicates things," she murmured. But there was a smile in her voice. "Things were already complicated," I said. She laughed softly, the sound warm against my skin. "You're not wrong." We didn't rush into anything else that night. We stayed close on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder, my arm around her in a way that felt natural instead of calculated. Milo shifted and sighed in his sleep like he approved of the arrangement. When I left, the rain had stopped. Lily walked me to the door again, but this time the goodbye wasn't cautious. She kissed me one more time, slow, deliberate, like she was memorizing it. I felt it everywhere. Driving home, I realized something had changed. Not just between Lily and me, but inside me. I had spent years building walls that kept disappointment out. Tonight, I had stepped through one willingly. And the terrifying part wasn't that I might lose her in 30 days. It was that I already didn't want to. The morning after we kissed, I woke up with the strange sensation that something irreversible had happened. Not outside of me, but inside. The room looked the same. Milo was still sprawled across my legs, breathing in steady, warm rhythms. The rain tapped softly against the windows like it always did. But I felt different. Less guarded, more exposed. We didn't text first thing in the morning. That silence felt intentional, careful, like we were both standing at the edge of something fragile, deciding whether to move toward it or pretend it hadn't happened at all. By noon, my phone vibrated on my desk while I was halfway through a design mock-up. Lily's name lit up the screen. My pulse reacted before I could stop it. She asked if what had happened the night before was a lapse in judgment. I stared at the message longer than I should have. The words weren't accusatory. They weren't regretful. They were searching. I could picture her standing in her kitchen, phone in hand, brow slightly furrowed the way it did when she was thinking too much. I answered with the only honesty I had. I asked her if she wanted it to be. The pause before her response stretched thin and electric. My chest tightened in a way that felt dangerously hopeful. When her reply finally came, it was simple. No. I exhaled slowly, feeling something settle inside me. Not certainty, not security, just acknowledgement. We weren't pretending. That evening was technically my day with Milo, but Lily asked if she and Anna could stop by for a walk. She said Anna missed him. She didn't say she missed me, but I heard it anyway. When they stepped into my apartment, Anna rushed toward Milo, kneeling dramatically like they'd been separated for months instead of hours. Lily lingered near the doorway for a second, taking in the space again. "It's peaceful here," she said quietly. "Controlled," I replied before I could stop myself. She looked at me then, not judging, just seeing. We walked through my neighborhood under a sky that threatened rain, but never delivered. Anna skipped ahead with Milo, narrating an elaborate story about spies and secret missions. Lily and I slowed naturally, falling into step beside each other. "You're thinking too much," she said gently. "I usually am." She didn't argue. She just reached for my hand. Not impulsively, not dramatically. Her fingers slid between mine with quiet certainty, like she had already decided we weren't going to pretend this away. I let her. The contact wasn't showy. It was grounding, warm, real. A few nights later, it was her turn to have Milo. She invited me over for dinner again, and this time there was no pretense about why I was going. Anna insisted I help with pasta. Lily moved around the kitchen with effortless confidence, occasionally brushing against me in small, unspoken ways. A hand at my lower back to pass behind me. A lingering touch at my wrist when she handed me a spoon. Nothing obvious. Everything intentional. After Anna went to bed, the house shifted into quiet. We sat closer on the couch than before. Milo sprawled between us at first, but eventually he slid off to the floor, leaving a space that felt charged. Lily turned toward me slowly. "I don't regret it," she said. "Neither do I." The air between us thickened. Not heavy, not urgent, just undeniable. She reached up and touched my cheek, fingers tracing lightly as if confirming I was still there. I leaned into her hand without thinking. That small surrender felt bigger than the kiss had. When our lips met again, it wasn't tentative anymore. It was deeper. Her mouth moved against mine with a warmth that spread through my chest, down my spine, into places I had kept carefully sealed for years. I slid my hand along her waist, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breath. She shifted closer, knees brushing mine, fingers threading into my hair. I pulled back just enough to look at her. "Are you sure?" I asked, because I needed her certainty as much as my own. "Yes," she whispered. That single word undid me. I kissed her again, slow, deliberate. My hands traced the curve of her back beneath the thin fabric of her sweater. Her fingers gripped my shirt lightly, not pulling me closer because we were already there. When I moved to her jaw, then lower, pressing soft kisses along her neck, she inhaled sharply. Her body reacted openly. No hesitation, no retreat, just presence. She guided me gently backward until I felt the edge of the couch behind my knees. We sank into it together, her weight partially against me, my hands steady at her waist. This wasn't reckless. It was intentional. Our kisses softened, deepened, slowed. The urgency melted into something more intimate. Foreheads resting together, breaths sinking, her thumb brushing absent patterns along my collarbone. "I forgot what this feels like," she admitted quietly. "What?" "To want someone without fear." Her honesty landed harder than any physical touch. I wrapped my arms around her fully then, pulling her against me in a way that felt protective instead of possessive. She rested her head against my chest, and I felt the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against mine. For a long moment, we just stayed like that. Not rushing, not escalating, just holding. And I realized something that unsettled me more than desire ever could. This wasn't just about attraction. This was about the terrifying possibility of building something real. With her, with Anna, with a dog who had accidentally tied our lives together. If this story has captured your heart, my Patreon is brimming with even more content. You'll find exclusive stories, longer chapters, bonus scenes, and richer details that bring each romance and every twist to life. Explore everything here and join a community of readers who believe in the power of slow burn love. 30 days suddenly felt less like a deadline, and more like a beginning. I didn't know how to measure. Somewhere between the third sticker chart and the second shared grocery run, it stopped feeling like an arrangement. It started feeling like a pattern, I didn't notice the exact moment it shifted. Maybe it was the night Anna insisted I sit next to her during movie time and rested her head against my arm like it had always belonged there. Maybe it was the way Lily started leaving a toothbrush for me in the cabinet without making a big deal about it. Or maybe it was the first time I realized I wasn't checking the calendar anymore. 30 days had felt like a countdown at first, a ticking clock above everything. But suddenly the days weren't numbered. They were just lived. That scared me more than I wanted to admit. Lily and I had always been careful when Anna was awake. Not distant, just mindful. Small touches, shared looks, quiet smiles. But one evening, after Anna fell asleep mid-story upstairs, Lily stood in the hallway outside her daughter's room and didn't move right away. "She asked me something today," Lily said quietly. "What?" "She asked if you're going to stay after the 30 days. My chest tightened. "And what did you say?" Lily turned to look at me, something unguarded in her expression. "I said I don't know yet." That honesty hit harder than reassurance would have. We walked downstairs in silence, the house dim except for the soft glow of the living room lamp. I sat on the couch first. Lily didn't sit beside me this time. She sat on my lap. Slowly, deliberately. My hands instinctively settled at her waist, steadying her. Her knees rested on either side of my thighs. Close. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric of our clothes. "We're not casual," she said quietly. "No," I agreed. "Are you afraid?" "Yes." The word came out before I could soften it. She didn't flinch. She leaned down instead, pressing her forehead against mine. "Good," she whispered. "That means it matters." Her kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't hesitant either. It deepened gradually, her mouth warm and patient against mine. My fingers slid along her back, pulling her closer, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath. This time, when I traced my hands under her sweater, she didn't tense. She leaned into it. Her skin was warm beneath my palms, soft, alive. She inhaled sharply when my fingertips brushed along her side, then steadied herself by gripping my shoulders. "Sara," she murmured. Not a warning. An invitation. I stood carefully, lifting her with me, and carried her the few steps to the couch again, lowering us both down. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders as I kissed her neck, slow, unhurried, learning the curve of her collarbone with my mouth. She pulled my shirt over my head in one smooth motion, eyes dark but focused. "I don't want this to be temporary," she said. The words didn't feel impulsive. They felt decided. I brushed my thumb across her cheek. "It doesn't feel temporary." Milo shifted on the rug but didn't interrupt. The house was quiet, safe. We moved slowly, exploring without urgency. Every touch deliberate, every breath shared. When I pressed her back gently against the couch and kissed her again, deeper this time, she wrapped her legs around my waist, pulling me closer. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about choosing to stay in the moment. Later, when we lay tangled together beneath a blanket, her head resting against my chest, she traced small circles on my skin. "You're not as guarded as you think," she said softly. I stared at the ceiling. "I am." She lifted her head and looked at me. "Not with me." That terrified me more than losing her would have. Upstairs, Anna turned in her sleep. The house settled around us. And for the first time in years, the idea of building something that lasted didn't feel like a risk. It felt like possibility. The first time it happened, it didn't look like an emergency. It looked like a normal Saturday. Anna had declared it pancake morning, which meant flour on every surface and chocolate chips in places that defied physics. Lily stood at the stove in loose sweatpants and one of my old t-shirts she'd stolen weeks ago, flipping pancakes with the kind of confidence that made domestic chaos look effortless. Milo hovered between us, hopeful and strategic. I leaned against the counter, coffee in hand, watching them, watching Lily laugh when Anna tried to flip one and sent it halfway across the kitchen. Watching the way sunlight filtered through the window and caught in her hair. It felt safe. It felt steady. And maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. Lily paused mid-sentence, just for a second. Her hand tightened around the spatula. Her shoulders went rigid. "You okay?" I asked immediately. She blinked like she was refocusing a camera lens. "Yeah," she said lightly. "Head rush." She set the spatula down and placed her hand on the counter, fingers splayed. Milo froze. Not curious, not playful, frozen. He stepped closer to her slowly, pressing his body against her leg. His tail wasn't wagging. His ears were alert, stiff. Lily exhaled slowly. "I just stood up too fast," she repeated. But she hadn't stood up. She'd been standing the entire time. Anna didn't notice. She was too busy demanding more chocolate chips. I stepped closer anyway. "Sit down," I said quietly. Lily gave me that half-amused look she used when she thought I was overreacting. "Sara, I'm fine." But her color was off, paler than usual, and there was something in her eyes, like she was concentrating harder than necessary to stay present. Milo nudged her again, harder this time. She finally gave in and sat at the kitchen table. I knelt in front of her without thinking, hands gently resting on her knees. "Talk to me," I said. She forced a small smile. "You're making it dramatic." "Am I?" She hesitated, and that hesitation felt louder than anything else. "It's just been happening a little this week," she admitted. "Dizziness. I figured it was stress." "This week?" My chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's nothing," she insisted softly. "I didn't want you to worry." I was already worried. Milo sat directly at her feet now, staring up at her face with intense focus. His nose lifted slightly toward her chest, sniffing the air like he was searching for something. Lily laughed weakly. "See? Even he thinks you're overreacting." But he didn't look playful. He looked alert. The moment passed, or at least it seemed to. She finished breakfast. She joked. She kissed my cheek when I hovered too close. The color returned to her face slowly, and by afternoon she looked normal again. Normal enough that I almost convinced myself it had been nothing. The second time didn't feel like nothing. It happened 3 nights later. Anna was already asleep upstairs. Lily and I were sitting on the couch, her legs stretched across my lap while we debated which movie to start. It was quiet, calm, ordinary. She laughed at something I said, and then she stopped. Her hand went to her chest this time. Subtle, but deliberate. "Lily?" "I'm okay," she said quickly. But she didn't sound okay. Milo, who had been half asleep on the rug, stood abruptly. He moved to her side and began pawing at her thigh, whining softly. That sound, low, uneasy. I had never heard it from him before. She inhaled sharply, like catching her breath after running. "Hey," I said, sitting up straighter. "Look at me." She did. Her pupils looked slightly unfocused. My pulse spiked. "Is this the dizziness again?" She nodded once. Milo barked, sharp, sudden. He jumped onto the couch beside her, pressing himself against her ribs, nose pushing insistently against the left side of her chest. "Okay," I said firmly now. "We're not ignoring this anymore." She tried to smile again. It didn't land. "I don't want to make it bigger than it is," she whispered. "And I don't want to make it smaller than it is." The room felt different now. Not chaotic, just fragile. She leaned into me slowly, her weight heavier than usual. I wrapped my arms around her automatically, feeling the uneven rhythm of her breathing against my collarbone. Milo didn't settle. He stayed alert, watching, waiting. And for the first time since this started, a cold thought slipped into my mind. What if this isn't nothing? I told myself we were being responsible. We agreed Lily would call her doctor on Monday. We agreed to monitor the dizziness. We agreed not to panic. We were very good at agreements. What we weren't good at was admitting fear out loud. 2 nights later, the fear admitted itself. It was past midnight when Milo started pacing. Not the normal restless pacing of a dog who hears something outside. This was deliberate, focused. He moved from the bedroom door to Lily's side of the bed and back again, nails clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. I opened my eyes to the sound before I was fully awake. "Milo," I whispered. He ignored me. He jumped onto the bed and went straight to Lily. Not playful, not excited, urgent. He nudged her shoulder hard enough to make her shift. "Hey," she murmured sleepily. "What are you doing?" He whined, a low, strained sound I had never heard from him before. "Lily," I said, pushing myself upright. "Are you okay?" She turned toward me slowly, and that's when I saw it. Her face wasn't just pale. It was gray. She inhaled sharply, like the air wasn't reaching where it needed to go. "I feel—" She stopped mid-sentence, hand moving to her chest. "Something's wrong." The words hit like ice water. Milo barked, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, loud, frantic, insistent. Anna stirred down the hallway. "Stay with me," I said, already reaching for my phone. My hands were steady in a way that felt mechanical, detached. "Stay with me, okay?" "I'm here," she whispered, but her eyes looked unfocused again. I called 911 before my brain caught up to what was happening. Milo didn't leave her side. He pressed himself against her ribs, whining, nose nudging that same spot on the left side of her chest, like he had been trying to tell us something for days. The paramedics arrived faster than I expected. Everything after that blurred into flashing lights and instructions. Anna crying in the doorway, me kneeling beside Lily as they lifted her onto a stretcher. "I'm not going anywhere," I told her, gripping her hand. Her fingers tightened weakly around mine. "I know," she said. I wasn't sure she did. The hospital was cold in that artificial way that makes everything feel temporary. They took her immediately. Anna fell asleep against my shoulder in the waiting room. Small fingers twisted in the fabric of my hoodie. Milo lay at my feet, unusually still. I replayed every moment of the past week in my head. The dizziness, the pauses, the way Milo had reacted before we did. The doctor finally came out after what felt like a year compressed into hours. "She's stable," he said first. The word stable felt like oxygen. "But," he continued, and I felt my body brace instinctively. "She experienced a significant cardiac arrhythmia. It's likely been developing quietly. She was very close to losing consciousness completely." Close. I swallowed hard. "We're running more tests," he said. "But you brought her in at the right time." "No, Milo did. When I was finally allowed to see her, she looked smaller somehow. Fragile in a way that didn't match the woman who had flipped pancakes 2 mornings ago." She smiled weakly when she saw me. "I hate hospitals," she whispered. "I know." I sat beside her carefully, taking her hand. Her skin felt warm but thinner than usual, vulnerable. The cardiologist explained the diagnosis the next morning. A structural electrical issue in her heart. Not catastrophic, but dangerous if left undetected. Medication, monitoring, possibly a minor procedure. Treatable. That word repeated in my head. treatable. We were lucky, the doctor added. If she'd been alone when this episode hit. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. My chest tightened painfully. She wasn't alone, I said quietly. The doctor glanced down at Milo, who had been allowed in briefly because the nurse was unusually kind. Dogs sometimes detect changes in heart rhythm before patients notice symptoms, he said. Elevated stress hormones, irregular pulse patterns, they sense it. I looked at Milo, at the same dog who had barked, nudged, insisted. The same dog we had almost argued over. Lily followed my gaze. He knew, she whispered. I leaned forward slowly and pressed my forehead against hers, careful of the wires. I almost ignored it, I admitted. But you didn't. No, we didn't. And suddenly the 30 days didn't matter. The custody agreement didn't matter. What mattered was that she was here, breathing, alive. Anna came in later that afternoon, eyes red but determined. She climbed gently onto the side of the bed and wrapped her small arms around her mother's waist. You scared me, she said bluntly. Lily laughed softly, even through exhaustion. I scared myself. I stood beside them, feeling something settle into place inside me. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It was clarity. I could lose projects, cities, opportunities. But I could not walk away from this. Not after that night. When Lily looked at me across the hospital bed, something unspoken passed between us. This wasn't temporary anymore. And the next decision we made wouldn't be about a dog. Recovery didn't look dramatic. It looked like medication schedules taped to the fridge. It looked like follow-up appointments. It looked like Lily getting tired faster than she wanted to admit, and pretending she wasn't. The hospital released her 2 days later. The arrhythmia was confirmed, medication prescribed, further testing scheduled. Manageable, the cardiologist repeated. You were lucky. Lucky. I kept thinking about how close we had come to not being. I stayed. Not in a heroic way. In a quiet, logistical way. I handled school drop-offs. I walked Milo. I learned how to read the numbers on the heart monitor app on her phone. I cooked because she didn't have the energy to argue about garlic anymore. Anna watched all of it. Children don't miss shifts in gravity. One evening, while Lily was resting upstairs, Anna sat cross-legged on the living room floor, drawing with Milo sprawled beside her. You're not going away, right? She asked without looking up. The question hit differently now. I sat down across from her slowly. Why would you think that? She shrugged, still coloring. People go away when things get hard. My throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere, I said carefully. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't saying it to comfort someone. I was saying it because I meant it. She nodded, like that was enough. It wasn't dramatic. It was decisive. That night, Lily and I lay in bed, the space between us smaller than usual. You don't have to rearrange your life because of this, she said quietly into the dark. I'm not rearranging anything. You are, she insisted gently. You've been here every day. I turned toward her, studying the faint outline of her face in the low light. I was almost not here, I said. Silence. Her hand found mine beneath the blanket. You can't live in the almost, she whispered. I know. But I could feel it. The fragility of time. The thinness of control. And for the first time, I understood something about myself I hadn't before. I didn't avoid permanence because I was independent. I avoided it because permanence meant something could be taken away. And now I had seen how quickly that could happen. A week later, the shelter called. The 30-day review meeting was scheduled. It felt absurd. We were measuring custody agreements while counting heartbeats. Lily sat at the kitchen table after the call ended, staring at the sticker chart on the fridge. "We should talk about it," she said. "Yes, if they ask who keeps him." I didn't let her finish. "It's not about that anymore." She looked up slowly. "What do you mean?" I took a breath that felt bigger than the room. "I mean, I'm not fighting you for him, and I'm not giving him up either." Her brow furrowed. "Sara, I'm saying," I continued, voice steady now, "that I'm not leaving. Not because of the dog. Not because of what happened. I'm staying because I choose to." The word choose felt heavier than love. She stood slowly and crossed the kitchen. When she reached me, she didn't kiss me immediately. She placed both hands on my face. "Almost losing time changes what matters," she said softly. "Yes." "And what matters?" "You." No hesitation. Her eyes filled, not dramatically, just honestly. She kissed me then. Slow, grounded. No urgency this time. No fear, just presence. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. "We're not temporary," she said. And for the first time, it didn't feel like hope. It felt like truth. The night before the meeting, Milo slept stretched across the hallway between our bedrooms like he was guarding something sacred. Maybe he was. Because whatever had started with a clerical error had turned into something neither of us could have engineered. And tomorrow, when we sat across from that adoption coordinator, we wouldn't be negotiating ownership. We would be declaring who we were. The shelter lobby looked exactly the same as it had the first day. Same disinfectant smell. Same bulletin board covered in adoption success photos. Same front desk. But nothing about us was the same. Anna held Milo's leash this time. She stood straighter, like she understood the weight of the moment, even if she couldn't articulate it. Lily's hand rested lightly at the small of my back as we walked in. Not hidden. Not hesitant. Chosen. The coordinator smiled when she saw us. "So," she began, folding her hands neatly on the desk, "have you reached a decision?" 30 days ago, that question would have meant something different. Back then, it was about possession. Now, it was about declaration. Lily looked at me first, not for permission, for alignment. I reached for her hand openly this time, our fingers laced together without uncertainty. "We have," I said. The coordinator nodded. "Who will be the primary adopter?" I felt Lily's grip tighten slightly, and then I heard my own voice, steady and clear. "We're adopting him together." The word together landed differently in the quiet office. The coordinator paused, then smiled slowly. "You understand that means shared legal responsibility?" "Yes," Lily said firmly. "We understand," I added. There was paperwork, signatures, technical language about co-ownership and liability and veterinary obligations. But none of it felt bureaucratic anymore. It felt ceremonial. Anna leaned over the desk while we signed. "Does that mean he's staying with both of us forever?" she asked. The coordinator laughed softly. "Yes, it does." Anna beamed. Milo wagged his tail like he had known all along. Outside, the air felt lighter. We didn't rush to the car. We walked to the park instead. Anna ran ahead with Milo, laughing as he tried to outrun her, but kept circling back, always checking that we were still there. Lily and I slowed naturally, fingers brushing before settling together again. "You know," she said quietly, "if he hadn't barked that night—" I didn't let her finish. "I know." We stood there for a moment, watching Anna in the distance. I had spent years believing control was safety, believing independence was strength. But standing there, with her hand warm in mine and the sound of Anna's laughter cutting through the afternoon air, I understood something I hadn't allowed myself to before. Staying was strength. Choosing permanence was strength. Not because nothing could go wrong, but because something had almost gone wrong, and we chose each other anyway. Lily stepped in front of me slowly. Her hand slid to my waist. Mine settled at her hips without thought. 30 days, she said softly. That's all it took. 30 days, I repeated. She kissed me. Not urgently, not cautiously. Just fully. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine the way she had in the hospital. I'm not scared of building this anymore, she whispered. Neither am I. And I meant it. Not because life had become predictable, but because unpredictability had already tested us, and we were still standing. Behind us, Anna shouted, "You're missing it!" We turned to see Milo sprinting in chaotic circles, pure joy embodied. Lily squeezed my hand once more before we walked toward them. No countdown. No shared custody schedule taped to the fridge. No almost. Just a dog who had been delivered by mistake. A heart that had faltered but kept beating. A daughter who believed in permanence. And a woman I chose without hesitation. 30 days had changed everything. Not because they forced us to decide, but because they showed us what mattered before it was too late.